hosted by four-time Emmy Award-winning producer Frank Pace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet Billy O'Connor. Brought to you by We Can Coffee Company, manufacturer of freshly roasted premium coffee blends delivered directly to your door.
This week's guest, former minor league pitcher, entrepreneur, and inventor of Big League Chew, Rob Nelson.
My brother
Frank, how you doing, pal? How's everything?
I'm doing pretty well. We just got back a week ago from San Diego, where we celebrated David Scott being the first man to drive on the moon, as the captain of commander of Apollo 15. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's really cool. I mean, just how fortunate you are to travel in those circles where you get to meet people like that. You know, in '69, I got the opportunity to shake John Glenn's hand.
Uh-huh.
I mean, just thank you, Mr. Glenn. Boom, end of story. But it was during the Bob Hope show when he was coming to Nam, and he brought Glenn with him and Connie Stevens, the musical guest. But I got to shake Glenn's hand, which to this day, I mean, great thrill.
It's pretty cool when you think about all these guys that are flying up in the air for 10 minutes and flying back. We're now at the point where the America was in 1961. When Alan Shepard went up, he went around the world a couple times, 3 times, made 3 orbits. These guys went up for 10 minutes, came back down.
Is that something?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. It's you're in that circle of people that you run into people like David Scott.
Yeah, Apollo 15.
Really cool. I'll tell you something else is pretty cool. Lamar's Gamble. Selling a lot of books, pal. I think we might have something here. People are starting to really, really like it.
Well, before we do that, we should say a word about our sponsor.
Why don't we?
Because we've got a sponsor.
See that? I'm telling you.
We Can Coffee. They make freshly roasted premium blends of coffee, which are delivered right by your door. So we'll talk a little bit more about them later. But now go ahead.
Hey, we got a sponsor. And that's all because we're selling books, I'm sure.
Books and 25,000 views within a month. That's pretty good.
You know, I was going to read from the book, but I'm going to read a quote from the back of the book first from one of our endorsements, because Johnny Clams is a guy I know, a long time bookmaker from the Bronx, you know. And when he read this book, Clams wrote, "I've been taking action for 40 years. 2 things I've learned. No one wins, and if money's involved, nothing's on a level."
No kidding.
This book is on the nose.
As we've learned with Upton Bell weeks ago.
Yeah, and the more research we do, the more validation we get. I mean, and now I just want to read 2 short paragraphs from chapter 3 of the book, because where money's involved, nothing's on the level, like the man says.
Read fast.
Carl Rosenblum, CR, as he was known to friends, was all things to all people. He was complex, brilliant, and ruthless, especially in business and finance. A gambler by nature, he purchased the Baltimore Colts for $13,000 in 1953, and fewer than 2 decades later, traded the franchise for the Los Angeles Rams for an estimated $20 million. Like many powerful men, if you crossed him once, you could be endlessly vindictive. To him, life was a contact sport.
Life is a contact sport.
Well,
it really is.
Especially with powerful people. I think they can be extremely vindictive and extremely complex, you know.
And if our readers want to read more about that, where do they go to buy it?
Well, they could go to Acclaim. They can go to Vive Lives Could Talk.
No,
you want to give me the website?
They can go to acclaimpress.com/books.
See, that's why you get the big bucks, Frank.
Or they can go to Amazon and click in Lamar's Gamble.
Lamar's Gamble. Or they could go to Mikamuka to Mike. Purchase and hit purchase.
Hit purchase.
Hit purchase. It takes you to all the books. Takes you to the websites.
Indeed, it does.
Yeah, and they're coming. The more coming. Combustable's right around the corner. Life is good.
Stephen Lang's movie's opening up this week.
Yeah, Avatar, huh?
Not Avatar.
Oh, I'm sorry. Don't breathe.
Yeah, you should read about it. You should read about it in your blog on the website.
Don't breathe the sequel.
Don't breathe 2.
Don't breathe 2. Yeah, don't you breathe either. Or screw you when they breathe, as they say in my neighborhood. But yeah, don't breathe 2. And yeah, Stephen Lang, man, what a sweetheart of an interview he was. He was just a great guy.
Yeah, the original movie cost $9.9 million to make. That was budgeted at $9.9 million and did $160 million worldwide box office gross.
And that was pretty much all on him. He had 80% of the time he was on screen.
Yeah, so for Don't Breathe 2, he's got points in the back end.
Well, you know about the points, Frank. Most of our listeners or our watchers, our viewers don't really know about points.
He's going to
The only points I know about is when I borrow money on the street. How many points am I paying?
So he's gonna get a piece of the action on the back end this time. So
pretty cool.
So
he won't have to make his nut, as he says.
He won't have to make his nut. He's already got his nut made.
I'm pretty sure he's good, though.
Yeah,
it looks like he's going to make his nut now for a long time. Well, he's got Avatar 2, 3, and 4, 5, right? Coming.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5?
2, 3, and 4, and 5. Yeah.
So, I mean, the guy, he's a hell of an actor and funny guy, man.
Yep.
You look at that interview we did with him. He's funny. One-liners. Bing, bing, bing.
Well, you know, another guy who we had on a recent podcast is in the news I was thinking about him quite a lot recently because football camps are well underway. And I just think about all the things that Dwight Hicks was telling us about CTE and Mike Webster knocking all his teeth out and gluing them back in.
What motivates him? I mean, obviously, you got to be sick as hell. I mean,
sick as hell.
But I mean, to pull all your teeth out and then to crazy glue them back in, and I think there was a 30 by 30 about Mike Webster where he was living in his car and homeless, and I think his wife threw him out, I mean, she's probably scared of him.
Probably.
I mean, at that juncture, you know.
But there's so many like Dwight, like Junior Seau.
Yeah, Junior Seau. Yeah.
Well, he didn't blow his brains out, but
and even Dwight said
he shot himself in the chest so they could see what was going on in his mind.
And even Dwight Hicks said that one of the reasons he took up acting is because he created new synapses, and he's always got to be afraid. You know, this is kind of a weird analogy, but if somebody in your family commits suicide, you're always got to be wondering about, you know, and if, of course, as a pro football player, the guy who took a lot of hits, 4-time Pro Bowler, 2-time NFL Super Bowl champ, it's got to be on your mind.
Yeah, and Rod Carew and I go to these card shows, and we often run into Earl Campbell there, and it's just heartbreaking to see Earl. He was so vibrant, such a starker.
Yeah.
And now he's confined to a wheelchair.
He is in a wheelchair.
He's got to be helped up. And that's got nothing to do with CTE. That's got to do with taking so many hits.
Well,
taking so many hits.
Yeah, and like Dwight said in the interview, that the chances of getting injured in the NFL, in his opinion, is 100%.
Oh, it's 100%. Not in his opinion. Nobody goes through a season not being hurt.
Yeah, the violence is, and you know, it's a great game. I mean, Lamar's gamble. I mean, one of the things about the game is the analogy to war. You know, the quarterback is throwing bombs. He's the field general. He's marching down the field. A bullet pass. You know, there's so many analogies to war that it's.
Well, you know, also we're at a point in time where offensive and defensive coordinators get paid $2.5 million.
Isn't that remarkable?
You know, in our day, they would be gym teachers. You know, gym teachers would be the football coach.
Yeah.
Now it's so much about money.
Big business.
And Upton Bell wrote in his book, he said, you know, everything is about money. College football and NCAA and pro football is all about money. And he's true.
Yeah, I don't think that's disputable. I mean, it's a business. You know, it's show business, and one of the reasons television put it on because they recognize the drama involved in it. You know, it's business. It's entertainment.
Did you watch any of the Olympics at all?
I can't get into it, Frank. I think maybe because there's no crowds, or maybe because of COVID. I don't know. I haven't gotten, and there really hasn't.
Well, I the reason I didn't watch it, they're over now. But the reason I didn't watch it is because of the time difference. You know, if you know who won, what's the purpose of watching?
What sport are you more interested in? Is it the soccer? Or they don't play soccer in the Olympics? I don't know.
Well, they do.
Is that the one you're more interested in than anything else?
No, I'm just interested in stories.
Uh-huh.
You know, whichever anybody's got a story that struck me. But again, I have a friend whose nephew played on the Israeli baseball team. So I was interested in that, Blake Galen. But other than that, golf I'm interested in, but I'm interested in, anyway. Tennis, I'm interested in tennis. So I really don't think the gymnastics once every 4 years holds that much of attraction to me. Or
do you think if
track and field.
there's a dominant person in a sport like Mark Spitz was in swimming or
Mark Spitz, are you a dinosaur or what?
well,
Mark
he was.
Spitz,
Don Shula. I could go back further. How about Don Shula?
Why don't you at least do a contemporary reference like Michael Phelps?
Well, Michael Phelps, or Nadia Comaneci, somebody dominant. You think that is a bigger draw than if you're looking to see if this person's going to win 6 medals, 7 medals? I mean, that's obviously.
I think so.
I don't think that's there this year.
I think so. Well, it's Simone Biles is a pretty good story.
Yeah.
A gymnast.
Yeah.
So, anyway, what else you want to talk about?
I don't know. We touched on the Olympics. We touched about our book.
Let's just bring Rob on.
Yeah, let's do that.
But before we bring Rob on, let's talk a little bit again about our sponsor, Weekend Coffee. We're pretty excited about this new sponsor. They deliver premium brands. They deliver it right to your door. They work with first responders.
That's a big thing for me.
It's really a big thing to you. And
they give a free bag of coffee for every 10 bags of coffee they sell.
Yeah.
To first responders and their families, which is it's nice. It's nice to see them grease the pan, like give us a little something back.
Yeah, and again, we're coming up on 9/11. Which I'm indebted to the first responders, to you guys who were there, the first responders in Miami. So anything we can do, all of their beans are freshly roasted to order. So again, weekendcoffee.com.
And you want to check out their Wall of Honor section because that's about first responders and their families, military people. So.
Right, great. Before we do, I want to read this trivia question. What ball player's bubblegum was concocted by former Yankees hurler Jim Bouton and his minor league teammate Rob Nelson? The answer, of course, is Big League Chew. So let's bring on Rob Nelson. Hey, Rob, how are you?
Very good. It's a good day out here.
Great. So you wanted to correct something that I said?
Well, I think that's from, is that a Trivial Pursuit question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's kind of dated. But, once we get into the story, it's okay. Jim was good about it. Jim used to say, Rob had the inspiration and he was the perspiration. No, the other way around. No, that's the right way. Jim is the guy who pounded the pavement and sold my idea to the Wrigley Company. And Jim was really gracious when he was on Bob Costas, the long-form interview, and Costas asked him about the origins of Big League Chew, and he said, I was sitting in a bullpen next to a pitcher and thinker, Rob Nelson, and we started talking about tobacco and other things. And Nelly said that he'd had an idea for shredding gum so he could look cool and not make himself ill and look like it was coming out of a pouch, and we love the idea. So that's the origin of the thing. I did have the inspiration. My dad used to call it lightning in a pouch. And Jim was the one, the business end of the deal, who made it happen. And he was outstanding. He was the bulldog wherever he went, and no more so than when he was trying to sell Big League Chew. And we got lucky. We really got lucky.
I think that Bouton, of course, Jim Bouton was a great pitcher with the New York Yankees in the early 60s. And he had a teammate at the time by the name of Steve Hamilton. And Steve Hamilton was chewing tobacco one day on the mound at Yankee Stadium, and he swallowed it. And he hurled right all over the pitcher's mouth. Bouton was there. That maybe was
an impetus for
why he didn't chew tobacco, that's for sure.
Well, that's a true story. I think he included that story in Ball 4. Hamilton was a smart guy. If I remember right, he was a college professor after his baseball life. But Jim, when Jim asked me, we were looking at Maverick teammates in the bullpen. This is the summer of 1977. On the independent team, the Portland Mavericks, Bing Russell was the owner. became a Netflix documentary, The Battered Bastards of Baseball. Talk about independent baseball and a really colorful and great owner, Kurt Russell's dad, Mr. Bing Russell. And we're looking at teammates chewing and spitting and making a mess in the bullpen. And Jim turned to me and said, "Did you ever try chewing tobacco?" And I said, "Once, and only once, and for about a minute." And it was such a bad experience. I couldn't throw batting practice that day. I happened to be overseas. I was in South Africa, touring with a team going through Rhodesia and South Africa. We were in Johannesburg. It was such a bad experience. I remember, those details. It was Danny Smith from Connecticut said, "Nelly, you should try some of this," and I did, and that's the last time I tried it.
And you were in South
Jim
Africa.
said the same thing. Jim said the same thing. He had an experience where somebody told him that this would be cool, and Jim realized very quickly that it wouldn't be cool.
And you were in South Africa when you read, or your father read, an ad in the Sporting News for tryouts for the Portland Mavericks, and you said, "What the hell? I might as well try it. Go back to the States."
Yeah, that's exactly right. I got out of Cornell, didn't get drafted. My baseball future was looking dim here. And as luck would have it, I was having a beer at the Someplace Else Tavern in Ithaca, New York. I was going to grad school up there. And I overheard two guys from Ithaca College talking about baseball possibilities in Cape Town, South Africa. So I didn't say anything about it. I didn't want to make it look like I was curious and maybe take their spot in the opportunity. But I did call Coach Ted Thorne at Cornell the next day, and I said, "What do you know about baseball in Cape Town?" And he said, "This will be perfect for you, Rob. It's a chance. You'll get your job. You'll probably be teaching school, pitching on the weekends, doing kids' clinics and the like. And it's at least for 1 year." And long story short, I interviewed, I got the job, went to Cape Town in October of '73. And as I said, the rest is history. I pitched real well there. It's funny, I was 24 years old and left-handed, and they didn't have many lefties over there, and very few who could throw breaking balls behind in the count. And that's kind of how I survived as a college pitcher. Having said that, I only really had one good year playing college ball my senior year at Cornell. If you're only going to have one good year in college baseball, it's the perfect, because I fell in love with the game. I've forgotten how much fun it was. I mean, I was on the senior Little League team, World Series champions from Massapequa, Long Island, 1964. My first ever baseball road trip to Louisville, Kentucky, the fairgrounds, 10,000 people at the final. And we won it. We went back to New York, and when our bus arrived on the Village Square in Little Massapequa from JFK, I thought they were going to knock the bus over. The fans were pounding on the side of the bus. It was the coolest thing. And I thought, this baseball could be a pretty good experience. And from then on, I just fell in love with the game. The following year, I made the varsity team. I pitched 3 years for Coach Don Lang in Massapequa at Berner High School. Wonderful guy. He was a minor league catcher. He gave me a lot of innings, probably more than they should have when I was, particularly as a sophomore. And I just got a lot of confidence, and I always played with a good team behind me. And again, I knew how to throw curveballs for strikes down in the zone. We turned a lot of double plays, and I got lucky. I went from community college, Nassau Community College, to the Ivy League. I felt like I got called. I felt like I got called up to the Yankees.
And you grew up on the East Coast, correct? New York?
Massapequa, Long Island,
right.
Home of Jerry Seinfeld and the Baldwin brothers and a cast of characters.
That's great.
We were lucky.
So 1975 or 1970, what year you read the ad for Sports Illustrated for
Portland?
For the Portland Mavericks? What year was that? Was that 73, 74?
Well, I'd had 2 seasons, so it was early 75.
Okay.
And it was funny. I was having breakfast with a teammate, Dwight Lurie, and I remember at the Carnaby Hotel and just shooting the breeze. And he said, "What are you going to do when the season's over?" Because it was winter baseball there. And I said, "I'm going to go back to the States. I'm going to go out to Oregon and try out for this independent team." I read a clip from the Sporting News among a bunch of things my dad had sent me. The funny thing about being in your middle 20s and you're starting to have some success as a ball player, you always think it's you. as opposed to the opposition. So I thought I was going to come out and pitch for Bing's Mavericks and win 10 or 12 games in half a season, with short A Northwest League baseball. And I figured Bing would sell my contract at the end of the year because that's how it worked with an independent team.
Right.
You didn't get called up to their Double-A team because there was none. Back then, an independent team could play in an affiliated league and play against teams that were, affiliated with the Padres or the Oakland A's or the Mariners.
And there were no independent. There were no independent teams at the time. You guys were the only independent team in baseball, correct?
Well, to speak of, yeah, there were a couple that tried, but none had the magic that the Mavericks had. I mean, we drew 4,000 fans a game. If you've seen the documentary, the star of that documentary is the stadium and the fans. They're the ones that really made the Maverick magic happen. They just related to a bunch of misfit toys for ball players, and they realized that we may not be particularly good, at least most of us, but we certainly put on a good show, and we tried hard, and it was worth doing.
Do you think?
But when I went out and tried out for the Mavericks, I had 3 good innings on the first experience, my first outing. The next day, the afternoon newspaper here, the Oregon Journal, said, kid comes from Africa, looks like he's going to make the team, yada, yada, yada. 3 days later, I went out and pitched again and got hit like a piñata. And that was, that was the motif for me in my Maverick experience. I did win 1 game in 3 seasons with the Mavs. And Big Russell had said to me, a true story, when I won my 1 game, Kurt Russell took us to the Bullpen Tavern behind center field at Civic Stadium. And the team and I partied like I was Madison Baumgartner, and I just won Game 7. Well, it was a big deal. And there was the cool thing about that evening was there was no sense of irony. It's not like it's about time Nelly finally won one. The guys were legitimately happy that I stuck around long enough to win a game. And of course, nobody knew where Big League Chew was going to go. I had invented it by then, and Jim and I had some discussions. But it was a full year and a half later before we were able to nail a deal down with the division of Wrigley. So back then, I was a potential middle school teacher, maybe a general manager for a minor league team. So nobody knew where things were going. But everybody was pretty happy that old Lefty, threw 5 innings and got a W, which was really sweet.
Yeah, today that would be a great accomplishment to throw 5 innings.
Yeah.
Well, any year it would be a great accomplishment to go 5 innings and get a win.
Yep.
The team. In fact, when they took me out after 5 innings, the bat boy Todd Field, who is now a writer and director in Hollywood, and kind of a big deal, 4 or 5 Oscar nominations. But he remembers as a bat boy when Steve Collette took me out of the game. I'm at the end of the dugout, and he hears Collette telling the guys, look, we need to get a couple of runs and get the lead. Rob may never get another chance.
So you mentioned Todd Field. Wasn't he the kid that he was the bat boy and he shaved up licorice and it kind of confused you because he looked like he was chewing tobacco?
Absolutely right. Now, when I didn't make the Mavericks, I made a proposal to Bing Russell. I asked him if I could do 3 things. I'd throw batting practice for $10 a night. I would sell tickets on the phone because I knew he had a room where they were trying to promote the team. And I said, I wrote this thing up when I was in college, and I think you might be interested in it. It was a simple concept. It was a baseball day camp using minor league players on public land. And I called it the Little Maverick Baseball School. And in an instant, Bing Russell said, I love the idea. So he let me use his brand. He let me use his players. He called the Park Bureau. I was working at Grant Park. I had a baseball day camp within 3 weeks of landing in Portland, Oregon, thanks to Bing Russell and the Park and Recreation Department in Portland, Oregon. I can't believe it's like those movies where somebody says, "I've got a barn and I've got a band,"
Yeah,
and they put on a show. Exactly right. So I put on a show. School. Todd Field was one of the kids who was a little Mav, and he had a beautiful sister who's still beautiful, Maggie. And but I said to Todd, maybe 3rd day in of camp, I said, who's that girl who drops you off in the morning? And I remember Todd specifically saying, it's just my sister. And I said, any chance you could introduce me? Anyway, long story short, we were an item for 6 or 8 years. And as it turned out, I got along better with Todd than I did with Maggie. We're still friends, and that's a good thing. But I was always around the field house, and then Todd, he fell in love with the Maverick coaches, the whole Maverick thing, because with Little Mavs, you would go to the camp from 9 to noon or 1 to 4, and then you could go to the ballpark, and I'd sit with all the kids above the Maverick dugout and watch the game. So it was like a 12-hour day for me, and I could not have been happier. It was so great. So Todd's family would come to the ballpark with me, and so I got to hang out with Maggie a little bit, and I thought, this is pretty cool. So Todd got so enamored with the Mavs, he auditioned for the one of the positions as a Portland Maverick bat boy, which was like a real status thing in Portland, Oregon back then for a kid, by then 14, 15 years old. And he got the job, and I loved him, and we all did. And you're absolutely right. I walked in one afternoon, and he's digging into a bag of Red Man. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Relax. It's some licorice I bought. I chopped it up. I thought it would be funny." And that was like the first year. So it was maybe a year later when when Todd and I were having a discussion about a number of things. And I said, that licorice idea.
And Todd's 13 years old, right?
Well, he was 14 at the time by then. Okay. And I said, I don't think your licorice idea is going to fly with kids. I don't think kids are going to chew something and then want to swallow it. I think what they're going to want is to chew bubblegum and blow bubbles. And Todd remembers this better than I do, and I believe him. But he said, "Yeah, whatever." He's a teenager. He was on to his next idea, and so I just stayed at it. And long after the Mavericks, Jim and I had the conversation in the summer of '77. He wasn't having any luck convincing any gum company this would work, and he said, "Rob, I need a prototype. These people don't get it." And I said, "This is hard to believe. I'll work on it." As fate would have it, January of 1979, there's an article in People magazine, maybe the size of a business card, one of those little filler pieces, small company in Arlington, Texas, that was selling a make-your-own bubblegum kit. I bought a case of the stuff, and I asked Todd's mom, Candy Field, of all things. True story.
Enough.
I asked Mrs. Field, and she was a sweetheart, still is. I'll tell you more about Mrs. Field in a little bit. But I said, "Can we use your kitchen? I want to make some bubblegum." And as a ball player, obviously, I don't have anything in my kitchen except, a fridge with very few items in it. And she said, "Okay." And so we did it. And I have a piece of loose leaf somewhere. We all signed it, the Field family and Todd, of course. And I sent it to Jim, and the rest is history. He went to a small division of Wrigley called Amaral Confections, and they made gimmick gum, ouch bubblegum that looked like a Band-Aid, or Mork from Ork bubblegums with words from what was the country, the planet he was from? I don't know. Nanu.
Mork from Ork.
I don't know.
He was from Ork.
Yeah, Mork from Ork.
That's right, Mork from Ork. And Nanu was like this catchphrase, and I still don't know what it means. Anyway, they made Mork from Ork bubblegum. What else did they make? Eventually, they made Chew Bops, which looked like tiny record albums, and the covers, the container looked like a small album. They thought these mini LPs were going to be the next big trading card bonanza. I think Chew Bops lasted about a year. And they said, "This is perfect for us." We signed a 3-year deal. They thought, cute novelty. This will be fun. And, of course, it turned out to be more than a novelty. We're in our 42nd year. And I couldn't be happier about it, frankly.
But wasn't your first batch a disaster? The first batch you made, you tasted it, it was terrible? You had to tinker with it? Or?
Geez, that's a tough question. The gum was dreadful. It was shocking. Okay. I went to the Fred Meyer grocery store next to the Stadium Fred Meyer. I got maple extract and root beer extract. Hires root beer extract.
Oh, Hires root beer, the best.
And I made 2 batches of it. And it rolled, when we put it in an oven, you bake it, it looked like paper thin brownies. But I had a round pizza knife that, you roll to make the slices of a pie. And just chop the bejesus out of the stuff and put it into pouches. I had an art company design a thing called, Big League Chew with a cartoon likeness of Jim Bouton, said, "Best I ever tried." Big League Chew bubblegum, and then I took it down to Civic Stadium. It was I was the pitching coach of Portland State for 2 seasons, and you guys still there?
Yeah, we're here. No worries, Rob.
We're gonna have to break for a second. My phone just said low battery. How can that be? I've been up since 5 waiting for you guys. Hold on a second. Hold on.
No worries.
Oh, what a nut. As luck would have it, I have an extension cord. Who knew? Within reach. All right. Got to hit the right end.
That's always a challenge.
Well, we're lucky this time because it's on the left side and I'm left-handed, so it's going to work. All right, now why is this thing?
I knew that left hand of yours would come in handy sooner or later.
Hey, listen, I
didn't
won
help you
6
with the
games for
pitching,
Cornell in 1971. You can look it up. Shut out Princeton. It couldn't have been that bad. All right, so where?
Sober up your computer.
No, it's not my computer. I need a pencil or something. Hold on. My sunglasses might hold that in. No, that's not going to work.
See, he's an inventor. You can see. He's like MacGyver. He's got sunglasses here. He's got the
You got any tape?
pencil. He knows.
Tape.
He's
the MacGyver thing. The MacGyver thing has come up a number of times because I'm absolutely I'm mechanically disinclined. Is that a word?
Yes.
It is now.
Tape.
Okay, I just happen to have, I don't know if you can see this, a copy of Collegiate Baseball.
Yep.
We got a full page ad. I don't know if that shows up or not.
Yeah, it does.
But
Yeah,
that organization, where am I?
Yeah, put it in
Is that
front of
good?
you. Yeah, there you go.
There, perfect.
It's a cool ad. It's in there every issue. The Pavlovich family. If you don't subscribe to Collegiate Baseball, I think you should. That's the commercial break. All right, I think we're getting back here now. All right, how's that?
Good.
Perfect.
Second perfect
Don't go
today.
perfect away.
Up.
Damn it! All right, good.
Yes,
This is the
sir.
inventive process, ladies and gentlemen. This is how it works. This is what you got to
This
do.
is how it
Trial and error.
It's
a
moving.
little
Most, speaking of which, one of the great books
Rob,
I
can
read
you
this
can you
summer.
look, can you?
It's a little high.
It's a little high.
Bring the tilt the phone. Yeah, there you go.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Again, I said perfect.
One of the great books you've read this summer was
The Wright brothers.
wow,
McCullough. What? Dave McCullough?
David
That
McCullough.
doesn't sound right.
Yep.
David McCullough.
Yes.
Truman.
Talking about trial and error. It's so.
We'll wait. We'll wait until you get.
Damn it! Come on, book it.
Yeah. There's no rush.
Yeah.
There he's back.
I don't know why that would happen. Damn it!
Now you're back in action.
Is that good?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's real good.
Yeah.
Rocket science.
Best yet.
Yep. Good. So
My
where?
earbuds.
So where were we?
Where were we?
The Wright-
Oh yeah,
the
you're
Wright
talking about
brothers.
the Wright brothers book.
Right, David McCullough's book on how those two guys, neither had gone to college. They had a kid sister who was like their inspiration, and they just wouldn't give up. There's a day in America that we should also celebrate, and it was 08 of 08 in 08, where Wilbur Wright put a flight demonstration on in France that nobody had ever seen before, and he dazzled the crowd. And it was that day, probably more than any other in the Wright brothers' history, that legitimized them as the genius combo they were.
Well, as an
Actually, they were a
inventor,
trio. Their sister, Catherine Wright, played a bigger role than most people. Just phenomenal. And for me, just to have so many failures out there. And of course, baseball is built on failure. You know, the guys who fail 7 times out of 10, a bunch of them are in the Hall of Fame. So
Yep.
part of the beauty of baseball, certainly for me, and as a parent now with my kids, encourage them to get into kinds of things that allow them to fail. You know, well, absolutely. I would have been a dreadful dad if my kids had gone into gymnastics, because when you fail in gymnastics, it can really be tragic. In baseball, all you do is strike out. And in tennis, all you can do is double fault. So, you know, I'm lucky that way, extremely lucky.
you know,
And my parents, my dad was NYPD, and I have 2 older brothers. My mom was a big league mom, and we were always encouraged to give it a go. Even if your joke failed, at least tell us what it is, and we'll decide if it's any good or not. You know.
Yep. Billy
But
does
It's not a
both.
bad way to. It's
Billy
not a
does
bad way
both
to
of
do
those
things.
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
But your dad was NYPD, huh? How many years? 20 years on the job? Or?
That's correct. And he was initially in Manhattan, then out in Queens, where he was born. My mom was born in Brooklyn. Uh, our roots are really New York. It's one of the things I'm really excited about. We're meandering a little bit here in terms of the conversation, but in terms of Big League Chew, when the Mars Company bought out Wrigley about 12 years ago, I really needed to find a smaller company because even though Big League Chew's been a good success, it's a niche brand. And with Mars and Wrigley teaming up, I can do the math. And I knew that they were going to sell more M&Ms on a Saturday than Big League Chew was going to sell in a year. And consequently, I would have been the 25th man on the roster, even though I had a fun brand. And I've got a great agent at Anderson, and he basically took the place of Jim Bouton and pounded the pavement and found a small company in Buffalo, New York, Fort Gum, and those guys are awesome. It's one of the reasons we became the Hall of Fame bubblegum. They loved the fact that we were 3 hours away from Cooperstown. And it's just, it's kind of son of a cop, community college, Ivy League, comes up with a bubblegum, doesn't have to teach middle school anymore, which I miss terribly. I love being a middle school teacher. And, a lot of those middle school kids I taught in Cape Town are almost 60 now. And it cracks me up every time they read about the gum and they say, we always knew that Mr. Nelson would be somebody. That's kind of fun.
Billy was in the New York City Fire Department for 20 years.
Yeah, I was on a job for 20 years. Different job, but still working for the city.
That's the code, on the job. I was at Starbucks early this morning, and a Portland police officer came in to order 2 cups of coffee, and I just said to him, how's it going? And he said, yeah, we're doing okay. Portland's had some issues over the last couple of years. And I said, my dad was NYPD, and I have a lot of respect for you guys, and I hope things are going okay. And he said, I was NYPD. I married a girl from out here, and we ended up out here. And he said, the guy in my car is from the Bronx. He's also NYPD. So what are the odds of that? 2 transplanted New York City police officers who were on the job, early in the morning, and probably don't get a conversation like that saying, hope you guys are okay, because it's different times out here. But it was fun. I really have immense respect for that. I have memories of going up to Tannersville, New York, what we used to call police camp, up in the Catskills, where it was like the film Dirty Dancing, except all the families were NYPD related. And I just remembered my time with law enforcement people. The men and the women that I met were just...
Oh, we used to go up to Tannersville all the time for golf outings with the FDNY. We used to call it the Jewish Alps and go up to Tannersville.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But I love that you mentioned how fortunate you were, how lucky you were. We have yet to interview a successful man, and we've had many, and Frank included. And women who have yet not to mention luck as the big factor, that being in the right place at the right time and getting lucky.
There's no question. There's that famous Branch Rickey line that luck is the residue of design.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I had a game plan, but what I do know is that when I would have wacky ideas as a kid, my parents never said, don't do that. And I really appreciate that. I mean, when we moved to Massapequa from Queens, all the homes are exactly the same. There was a lawn in the backyard, and the first thing my dad did was cut out a big circle and take the grass out, and all the neighbors thought he was putting in one of those 4-foot above ground swimming pools.
Right.
He's the only guy in Westwood Village in Massapequa who brought in dirt, because he built a pitcher's mound for my brother Harry and for me, and a big backstop because I was a wild left-hander and my brother Ed was playing lacrosse. We had a backstop / hockey goal in our backyard, and it's like my parents understood what mattered to their 3 boys, and they gave us a long leash to go fail, basically.
Well,
one of the things I loved about Bing Russell was that he gave guys a lot of chance with the Mavericks. And he said to me once, I said, why are you doing this? You got a 30-man roster. What's with that? He said, I want to give as many guys as I can the opportunity to fail at baseball so they can get on with their life, which I thought was hilarious.
Well, why don't you talk a little bit about Bing? Because Bing was a really good baseball man, but he had a career as an actor, and for 13 years he was on Bonanza as the sheriff, wasn't he?
Phenomenal actor. He was in The Magnificent Seven. He's in Hawaii Five-0. He's in Mannix. Kurt described him as a plumber actor. The house in Thousand Oaks is still owned by the family. Regrettably, Kurt's mom recently passed away, but they still have the house where Bing would leave in the morning, go do his part. Maybe have 3 lines in Rockford Files, and then come home and have dinner with the family. And he just stuck to it. And when you talk about a guy readjusting his dreams, because he was a good actor, and he thought he was going to be a big deal in Hollywood. They left Rangeley, Maine in a station wagon with Kurt and his 3 sisters. And I asked Bing about that. He said, I really didn't want to work for a living. And I thought I was good enough as an actor that I could make my mark. But, he'd done films with a lot of famous people. One guy who really loved Bing Russell that few people know is Elvis Presley. And Kurt has told this story on TV. Bing told it to me in his office at the stadium. We were talking about, it was the death of Elvis, summer of 77. And he told me a story that he gets a phone call and his wife says, Bing, I think it's Elvis Presley who wants to talk to you. And he thought it was a gag, but it was. Is it Mr. Russell? This is Elvis Presley. And Bing, and I said, what'd you say? He said, well, hi, Elvis. How's it going? He tried to be as casual as he could. And Elvis had just received a role in a Western. And I don't remember which Western it was, but he said, I've always admired, he's talking to Bing now, he says, I've always admired the way you wear a cowboy hat. And I'm going to be in a Western, and I don't know how to do that. Could we get together, and could you give me a few pointers on how to look legit out there? And they did it. They met, and they did that. It's just an improbable story.
I would guess his first movie, Loving You, he played a cowboy. So I would think it was his very first movie.
Well, it would be.
Isn't that funny?
Yep.
Anyway, it was the cool thing. Bing always says the greatest thing he ever did in Hollywood was introduce his son to Walt Disney, because that opened all those doors. Mr. Disney loved Kurt Russell. In fact, neither Bing nor Kurt, they always referred to Walt Disney as Mr. Disney. Always. They just they had so much respect for the guy.
We were fortunate enough, a friend of Frank, Stephen Lang, who was co-starred with Kurt Russell in Tombstone. And we had him on interviewing him, and I can't tell you how highly he spoke of Kurt Russell. Talking about a guy who knew the movie business from the ground up and every part of it. I mean, he just couldn't heap enough praise on Kurt Russell.
Absolute real deal guy. The only other guy I've ever met who's had some sense of success is compared to Kurt was Bill Ripken. And Billy and I are pretty good friends, and he is authentically humble and funny and very cool in a legit way. And Kurt is the same way. I can remember being with him having breakfast in Bellingham, Washington. We were playing at the time the Bellingham Mariners, and it was about 4 of us at a big round table. And a waitress came over and said, one of the cooks says one of you guys is famous. And Kurt said, we're with the Portland Mavericks. We're playing the Bellingham Mariners tonight. You guys should come out and see the game. And he wasn't trying to be clever or a jerk or anything. He just saying, yeah, we're with the ball club. And so she left, and we just went away to breakfast. And nobody said, hey, good call, Kurt. Nothing. It was just like that's who he was. Yeah. He was absolutely the real deal. The 2 rock stars on the Mavericks were, of course, Jim Bouton, former Yankee, and Kurt Russell, former everything. I mean, he's almost 70 now. He's been in Hollywood for 60 years.
Yeah, wow.
Sundance for the premiere of Battered Bastards. I asked him, is the film any good? It was his grandsons who produced the film, his nephews, Bing's grandsons. Jamie Way, Kurt's sister, has 3 sons, and the 3 boys put this film together. One did the music, the other 2 guys did what they had to do. And I asked Kurt, is the film any good? He said, Rob, I don't know. He said, they interviewed me, they interviewed my mom, and we just left them to it. As it turns out, the boys had racked up about $60,000 in Visa bills. And they just rolled the dice on this. It was their first film out of at a film school, first movie they'd done. And as luck would have it, again, there's that word.
Yeah.
Netflix loved the movie, gave him a big chunk of change for a 20-year lease. So in about 15 years, no, less than that, 14 years, they'll have the rights to it back again. But the beauty about Netflix and the way media works today is a little documentary like Battered Bastards would have played at a few art houses and then would have been kind of obscure. I can't tell you how many teammates of mine from Sydney, from Cape Town, from London, all the places that I went to over my 20 years on the road after college, who said, hey, Rob, that film was so cool. And they, almost every guy says, I knew you were part of a minor league team. I never quite really figured out what you did exactly. And then they knew. They nailed it. That was a home run. That film was just awesome.
Without a doubt.
And you won a ball game.
Yeah.
You won a ball game. That's more than a lot of people can say. Boy, that's for sure.
Well, talking about luck again, I want to ask you, if Bouton hadn't written ball 4, he might not have been blackballed from baseball, and at which time he would have been sitting next to.
Absolutely correct. I met Jim Bouton after my senior year at Cornell in 71. Nobody gave me a shot of any significance. I got a 3-week extended spring training thing with Cardinals, unsuccessful. So I'm back at grad school. And I wrote a letter to Jim Bouton, who at the time was doing ABC Sports in Manhattan. And I told him my history, that I'd pitched well this past spring. Nobody's drafted me. I'm working on a knuckleball. Could I come down and throw some knuckleballs with you? Because I had read that he was playing for a local league, the New Jersey Merchants or something in Teaneck, New Jersey. And he sent me a note back. And he said, call this number. We'll work out a time and a place, and we can do 15 or 20 minutes. And so that's what happened. I drove down from Ithaca, New York to Teaneck, New Jersey, near the George Washington Bridge. And he gave me an hour. Just 2 guys playing catch in a public park in Teaneck, New Jersey. Just shooting the breeze. I had no idea his brother Bob was a lightweight quarterback at Cornell. They have at the time, it was the 160-pound league. It's 4 or 5 Ivy League schools plus Army and Navy. And it was called lightweight football. It's called sprint football now. And I think the minimum weight is 180 now, because we're all getting bigger. but Jim's brother Bob was a lefty quarterback at Cornell, and we just hit it off. So fast forward 2 years, I end up going to Cape Town, playing a couple of seasons. I end up going to Portland, Oregon. Jim tries to make a comeback, no success. Durango, Mexico with Bill Veck, in Knoxville, Tennessee, handful of other opportunities. And then he sees the Joe Garagiola story on the Portland Mavericks on, I think it was NBC Today Show or something. I don't even know what the name of the show was. But Jim called Bing Russell and said, any chance I can come out and pitch a few games? I'd like to get back in the game. And Bing, being the showman that he is and was, said, sure. Jim walked into the clubhouse, and I was in the clubhouse, and I reintroduced myself. I said, Jim, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Rob Nelson. I'm the Long Island kid. We threw knuckleballs together in Teaneck. In classic Bulldog, he says, Rob, I remember you. And as I remember it, I threw knuckleballs, and you tried to. Just cracked me up. I said, well, yeah. I said, the one thing we had in common, you threw 9 out of 10 that did a dance, and I threw 1 out of 10 that did a dance. And he said, how'd that work for you? I said, no, it didn't work at all. I had to go 10,000 miles away. Jim always told the joke that Rob has pitched on 4 continents, and he usually stays in the country for 3 years, and they figure out his curveball, so he goes to a new country. And that's pretty much what happened, to be honest. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Pure serendipity in a way. But here are 2 guys who love to play, who reached, basically a level of incompetence. Jim did make it back to the big leagues with Ted Turner's Atlanta Braves, and had the September of 1978 where he got to pitch back in the big leagues. But more importantly was the friendship that we created. And he was the business guy. The one thing he said in the bullpen that nobody else said to me when I talked about shredded gum in a pouch, Jim said the 2 things that mattered. He said, I love this idea, and I can sell it. And the third thing was a question. He said, what would you call it? And I remember just out of the air, I said, I don't know, Big League Chew. My brother Ed says that's like four guys in a pub in Liverpool, and they say, "What are we going to call a band?" And Ringo says, "How about Beatles? Beatles is good, you know." And it was like pure
Perfect.
luck.
Perfect.
Again, there's that word, you know. And I have been known as the lucky lefty for a very long time. My arm is not in the Hall of Fame, but my gum is, and my family thinks they think that's hilarious. You know, that there's a little section where there's Big League Chew with, you know, baseball in the '80s, and we get, you know, we get a couple of square inches there. It's pretty cool.
It must have been pretty fulfilling that day.
Well, and it just keeps coming. Halloween, the amount of bags of Big League Chew we give out. It seems everybody's got a Big League Chew story, whether it's a bartender or somebody pumping gas here, which they still do in Oregon. Just everywhere I go, somebody seems to have a memory that makes them smile. I love the fact that Big League Chew has brought smiles to so many people's faces. Next month, I'm doing an interview with the History Channel. They're doing the thing on food in the '80s, and they're coming out here,
Wow.
and we're gonna recreate the magic moment when I made the brown gum. I never finished the story when I took Big League Chew, the root beer and maple flavored Big League Chew, to Civic Stadium, where the Mavericks played, but also where Portland State played. So you're looking at spring of '79, and I've got a box full of my concoction. And I had dinner last night with one of the assistant coaches, Steve Candela, from those years. We kept in touch over the years. And Steve remembers, he's maybe the first guy who tried the sample of Big League Chew. And his line was classic. He said, "Rob, this is a great idea." But nobody on the team said, "This is great gum."
Yeah.
Because the gum really sucked.
Well, I'll tell you a similar story, really. In 1968, 69, I was in Jacksonville, Florida, and I was on the soccer team, and I played baseball. Not nowhere near the level of success that you achieved, but in soccer, we were really getting wasted during the days because practices were so hot in the morning sun and the afternoon sun. So the university, some inventors at the University of Florida gave us their Gatorade, their first batches of Gatorade.
That's amazing.
And we really almost couldn't drink it because when you poured it, it almost folded out. It was so thick. It was almost so thick, and the taste was ghastly. But we gagged it down because it made us play better. And that was a similar
That was the
story.
start of Gatorade, yeah.
The start of Gatorade.
I went to UF, and they take great pride in the fact that Gatorade come out of there.
Yep.
But on
That's
your
pretty
gum,
cool.
I gotta talk about you mentioned the Beatles as just as an anecdote about how the name was perfect, Big League Chew, and I can never listen to a Beatles song to this day without smiling. But when they talk about Big League Chew, I love the quote that describe it. They said it tastes unadulterated, and unmistakable of childhood. It just makes you smile and think of childhood, which that's a hell of a quote. That's a hell of a thing to say about a gum.
Well, as one of my Cornell teammates said, you know, not bad for a philosophy major to bring smiles to so many people. I mean, what philosopher wouldn't take that, you know? And I will say this, I was a very minor league philosopher. I went to Cortland State to get my master's so I could become a middle school teacher. And I was so grateful for that. And another thing about when I had this discussions with Jeff Idelson, the then president of the Hall of Fame,
and a good friend, a good friend, and a future guest on a Mikamuka to Mike podcast.
No kidding, he's a wonderful guy,
He is
and
a great
just
guy.
I was going to say a warehouse of knowledge, but it's like a storehouse of knowledge, right? Anyway, he is a brilliant guy, and the one thing he really liked was that we were New York centric. You know, Eddie went to Suffolk Community College and then played lacrosse at Geneseo. Harry went to Wagner College. I went from Nassau up to Cornell, so we're kind of New York guys. When I told him that one of the reasons I went with Fort Gum is because they were in Buffalo, and I had teammates from Tonawanda and Kenmore High School during my college days. And I said, and you know, Warren Spahn grew up in Buffalo, and they filmed The Natural in Buffalo, and there was something gritty and authentic about Buffalo that I thought was a really good spot for Big League Chew. And as it turned out, the Ford Gum guys, they understand me. They realize that I've got 100 ideas and they can use maybe 3 of them, but they'll take it, and that's been a good thing. The one thing, the reason I bought out Jim Bouton, 20 years ago, seems impossible, that was because he wanted to expand the brand and do other things, caramel corn, root beers, and things like that. And we had just a fundamental difference of philosophy. And I said, Jim, our brand is not Big League. If you do Big League sunflower seeds, it's not going to make people smile the way Big League Chew does. And that's because our brand is Big League Chew. I said, it's like taking the Jack out of Cracker Jacks. Unless you say Big League Chew, you don't get the smile that you get. You probably told people that, hey, we're going to be dealing with the Big League Chew guy. And I'm sure more than a handful of people said, I love that stuff. It just cracks me up. And I like that part. So Jim and I split as partners very amicably. He's gone 2 years now. I miss him every day. He's just absolute huge influence on me on and off the field, as they would say, and just a really, really good man. Few people know how kind Jim Bouton was. And it's a commonality that he had shared with Kurt Russell. Kurt was just a really decent guy. Whether it was the bus driver or anybody we hung out with, those guys were just like part of the team. And they thought team first. And of course, after ball 4, Jim took a lot of heat. And there are parts of ball 4 that I'm not crazy about, but there are parts of ball 4 that are really heartwarming and really revealed to me the true Jim Bouton.
Well, the thing that tells you about Jim Bouton, the thing that told me about Jim Bouton, was the night he was on Johnny Carson, and he held up Johnny. He held up the sign off because he wanted to name all the teammates of his on the Portland Maverick. So he went one by one. He read the list real fast, but he got everybody in, and I can't imagine how great you guys felt when you heard your names. And
it was the coolest. It was the coolest thing. And Jim, they only got parts of one segment in the documentary with Jim on Johnny Carson. He was on twice actually, and both times you can tell Johnny Carson was having as much fun as Jim was. That Jim was the real deal, and that he was doing this because he had a lot of little boy in him, which is to say he was childlike, but he wasn't childish. I mean, I used to describe him as a dreamer with a deadline. And that's what I need. I had my hair was real long back then and bleached out blonde. And like when I played like in Cape Town or in Sydney, I was always working out on the beach. Typical 20-something clown, working on my tan, making sure my hair got bleached out. I was a surfer dude who could hardly swim. But Jim, he would force me to focus and say, well, we can do this. So even the basic thing like saying, hey, I need product. And my job was to find product. And so I did it by reading People magazine. It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing, that one thing comes along and then another thing comes along. And it's quite phenomenal how the luck will happen if your eyes and ears are open and you see what the opportunity is. I remember when I didn't make the team, before they even put up the list, I remember the exact words I said to Bing Russell, and that was, look, I know I pitched myself off the team last night, but I'm not going back to New York. I'm going to stay here. And that's when I made the 3-part offer, parking cars, throwing batting practice, and what do you think about a baseball day camp?
Wow.
And the thing about Bing Russell, and I found this a lot in my life, is when you bare your soul to people and you tell them that this is what you really want to do, this really matters to you, people respond to that. And they give you that opportunity, again, the opportunity to fail. If my baseball day camp was a disaster, it was all on Bing because he gave me the brand. And we sold that camp out every time. A couple of kids, John Jaha was in the camp. He made the big leagues for a few years. One kid became a Golden Gloves boxer, Andy Minsker, which I thought was hilarious. That you go to a baseball school, learn how to fight. Became a big deal in Hollywood. He's a good guy. He's in Berlin now, filming a movie, and I couldn't be happier for him. So,
what are you doing now? You're still associated with Big League Chew. What are you doing now for the?
Pretty much what I've always done. I come up with goofy ideas. Through Cal Ripken, I met a fellow named John Maroon, who's got a PR agency in Maryland, outside of Baltimore, Columbia, Maryland. And Maureen Pujar has done, maybe 7 or 8 years of work on Big League Chew. So I work hand in glove with his staff. And the women and the guys there, they just get me too. We'll have conference calls, and they'll scribble a couple of notes down. Something like, bubblegum's better when it comes from a shredder. Oh, we'll take that. We'll put that on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that. So they know they're dealing with Fred Flintstone. And the George Jetson's them. So I paint in the broad strokes. I love going. Next year we'll resume it. Post COVID. Let's hope. But going to Cooperstown Memorial Day weekend, they have the Cooperstown Classic baseball game. A lot of former big leaguers come in, a handful of Hall of Famers. They have a clinic on the Friday before the Saturday game, and I absolutely love it because kids can learn how to catch ground balls from Ozzie Smith at shortstop. And then when you're done with Ozzie, go down the right field bullpen. There's Coach Rob. He's going to teach you how to blow a bubble. And Ozzie Smith has said to me, the second year I did that, Ozzie Smith said to me, you got the most popular station here. You've got Joe Rudy teaching how to catch fly balls but go to Coach Rob in right field. He's the gum guy. And so that's what I do for Ford Gum. I do the wacky stuff. I go to the Sweets and Snacks show in Chicago, and a lot of photo ops. I'll do radio stuff and things like that. It's I'm still the voice and regrettably the face of Big League Chew. But there it is. There are little things about Big League Chew that people who get the game, who get how business works, it makes them smile. And I'll tell them to only people that I know are going to get it. For example, when I first met with Jeff Idelson, we're talking about the gum. And I said, if you look at the original pouch, the number on the helmet is number 16. And that's my thank you to Whitey Ford.
Right.
Because I always wanted I always wear number 16. I just got a new Volkswagen and a Golf, and I love this car. And I can't believe I only thought of it now, but my license plate is ONESIX. So it's the year Whitey passed, and I've got 16 for my license plate out here in Portland, Oregon. And guys, I sent a photo of the license plate. This is the coolest thing. I mean, what 72-year-old guy gets a license plate to honor his favorite baseball player? But there are people who love that stuff. And then you'll on the pouch now, since this past spring, the number on the helmet is 56. It's my thank you to Jim Bouton.
Right.
And the more you do that stuff, and I'm one of the lucky guys, the youngest of the three Nelson brothers. Gene and Harold raised us to just be regular folks. I mean, when I hear Jerry Seinfeld talking his stuff about growing up on Long Island, I remember his dad. His dad was Cal Seinfeld with a K, and he used to do billboards in Massapequa. And Mr. Seinfeld's signature was a guy with a painter's cap and a bucket of paint, and his company was SIGNFEL, Seinfeld. And I can remember being 11 or 12 years old thinking, I wonder if that's really that fella's name. And then, of course, Jerry's show came out, and it all made sense. When we won that Senior Little League World Series in 1964, I have the program somewhere between this apartment and the one upstairs that I'm moving into, and a half-page ad is from Cal Seinfeld. It just says, "Nice job, boys." Cal Seinfeld with that signature. It's like a Mickey Mantle signature from Massapequa, Cal with a K, which I thought was cool. But, so I got lucky that way, too. You don't choose your parents. You don't choose your brothers. But if you win the lottery like that, I mean, I won the Brotherhood lottery and the mom and dad lottery. And I'd be disappointed if I didn't take some chances and fail a lot and hope that one thing's going to happen.
Boy, you
never know.
You've hardly failed, that's for sure. Billy, you got any closing thoughts?
I love the enthusiasm. Your enthusiasm, you're still like a kid. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, when you're talking about life in general, not just the product. And the chance to fail. What a concept. It's a great concept.
Well, thanks for that. Next week I'm flying back to Long Island. It's the 35th and final summer of the Southampton Baseball School. It's an idea of little Mavs that I brought to the east end of Long Island. I would go back for about a month every summer to hang with my two brothers at a place called the Lobster Inn. Just it was just a Hall of Fame restaurant. So many nice people work there. And I would go back there and just eat lobsters and coffee mugs full of Heineken of coffee mugs full of Haagen-Dazs ice cream and have way too many beers, just having fun with my brothers. And I finally realized every time I go to the Hamptons for the summer, I put on 12 pounds. So I asked the town of Southampton, could I start a baseball day camp? And for 35 years, we've done the Southampton Baseball School. My goal for the longest time was to throw 70 miles an hour at 70. Well, that ship has sailed, and now I'm 72. Now I'm 72, and it's my 35th year of the camp. Had it not been for COVID, it would have been 36 years out of 72. So half my life, I would have been Coach Rob on the east end of Long Island. But my elbow is telling me, if you want to keep pitching, you might want to go out the way Koufax did, which is to say, people remember that you used to be somebody. And so I've announced that this is the last couple of weeks we'll do the camp, and I'll be as goofy in 2 weeks' time as I was in 1986 when we started the whole thing. And I'm grateful for that. I really am.
And everything you will keep pitching from now on will be Big League Chew. Almost 1 trillion packages. Billion, right. 1 billion packages.
That's amazing.
Of this gum has been sold. That's incredible.
He's been called the patron saint of youth baseball because of Big League Chew, which is
I'll say this, the odds of a Big League Chew, really 1 billion to 1, no pun intended. Yeah. And I got the brass ring, and I'd like to say I ran with it, but people have seen me run, so I jogged with it. and I can't thank you guys enough for helping me spread, basically my gospel of gum and a lot of other things.
Congratulations on a life well lived, and may it continue to go on for some time.
Just stay as enthusiastic as you are today.
Enthusiastic as you are today. That's
Can't
great.
miss, brother. It's contagious.
You guys are awesome. All right, see you guys. Bye now.
Another one for the books, huh?
Yeah, I the two things that I took from this, which I took from you when you wrote Lips, when we wrote Lips together, was never cut off any friendships that you made, and how luck is a big part of everybody's success.
And I feel like we made a new friend today.
Well, he's impossible not to like. He's just absolutely impossible. His enthusiasm's contagious, and you can see he really enjoys life. You know?
He does for sure.
Yeah, he savors it.
He does for sure. So what else, my friend?
I don't know.
You want to have a bubblegum blowing contest?
I guess I'm up for it if you are. I usually like to be able to render these things, but we're going to so I'm not afraid to give it a shot. I hope it doesn't become a habit.
Oh, there's so many jokes I could tell.
Oh yeah, that's a hell. You can tee it up with that big league blow. That's for sure. You got to get the sugar off it first. Is that correct?
I guess.
Did you guys use the glue this morning?
Mm-mm. 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 It's good.
Yeah.
Mm.
You don't have the sour apple, do you?
Yeah, he does.
Well,
good luck on the bubble blowing.
Sweet.
That's good stuff, man. The thing he talked about memories as a kid. I remember the first time I actually chewed this gum.
Really?
Yeah. It wasn't in baseball. It was actually in football. It's kind of funny on the bench in football.
You started off chewing it, then you started snorting it, then you started shooting it. How rough was that neighborhood?
My neighbor. I grew up in a great neighborhood.
Did you?
Yeah.
Massapequa, where Rob grew up, had a rival bar out there. My father's place was the name of the place. Had some great rock and roll acts of the day. I think that's Billy Joel country too, isn't it? Massapequa?
I think Billy swallowed his.
No, I'm still chewing it. What an interesting guy, man. Ivy League, take them out of an Ivy League school.
I know, Cornell.
And then make bubblegum.
By accident. And be fortunate enough to have a minor league teammate who could into your invention.
Your idea, yeah.
I was going to ask him, but I didn't have to because he answered the question himself. And how many people made it out of Portland? Just none. I mean, none. Boughton came the other way.
Mm-hmm. And then went back.
Yeah.
Okay. You got
here we go.
You got the sugar out of your mouth?
Hang on.
Okay, I'll go first.
I just don't blow as good as you, Frank. I'm trying. I'm chewing. Give me a second. There you go. Look at this guy. He's up already. Look at this guy.
Oh, it's over, Billy.
Who's got
Should I just go safe?
beat
No,
that?
no, go ahead. Let's go. Your turn.
Da 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 da. Not all day, Val. Okay, go. Lowe's, you lost.
Wow.
No, I didn't blow up. You still got some on your nose.
Keep going.
Yours is much bigger.
I won.
Yours is much bigger.
I
Yeah.
won.
It's been a long time since I've done this. You know, I never,
Frank-
I
Frank-
haven't
Frank's is like 5 times bigger than yours.
5 times.
Yeah.
That's not all. It's 5 times bigger than yours.
I've been told that a lot. Usually by women. You know, I really haven't thought about it, but I probably haven't tried to blow a bubble since I was about 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Not something that comes up that often, you know?
Anyway, let's sign off.
All right.
Before we sign off, I want to give a shout out again to our
Sponsor.
friends at Big Communications. They manage our new sponsor, Weekend Coffee Company, and are instrumental in the company's support of our first responders and members of the military. Billy, we've got 9/11 coming up.
Yeah, we do.
Uh,
We have Richie Picciotto on,
Richie Picciotto, will
author
be
of
on.
Last Man Down. And
Again, a great first responder. You were a first responder, and our hearts go out to all the people in Florida who've been covering that
horrible collapse.
horrible collapse down there. The 343 people and the other who lost their lives at 9/11. It's
Well, when Richie comes out, I mean, he was actually in the core of the building, and one of the 7 or 8 guys that were lucky enough to come out. The whole building collapsed around him.
Weekend Coffee donates a box of coffee, a package of coffee to every tens they sell. So,
And you can learn more about bbigcommunications.com, and you learn more about this marketing company that sponsors.
us. Yep.
Yeah.
Great. With that, Billy, say goodnight.
Good night, everybody. And thanks for tuning in, and we really appreciate it.
And thanks for your continued support. Don't forget Lamar's Gamble is on Amazon and amikamukandamike.com. If These Lips Could Talk, Confessions of a Bronx Bookie. All 3 of those books. Why don't you just, spend a weekend and read all 3? And there's going to be a 4th one coming out probably in a week or so.
Hopefully, Combustible will be out. Yeah.
Loosely based on the life of Billy O'Connor.
And one of the things that we are proud about of these 3 books that are out is they are all easy reads.
Well, simple reads from simple minds.
Well, it's been said that some writers write like champagne. We write like water. But the good news is everybody drinks water.
Yep.
So let's hope that's the situation.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in.
Next week's guest, the most accomplished female broadcaster of all time and member of Professional Football Hall of Fame, Leslie Visser.
We'll see you next week.